Hi, my name is Terry Dahl. I'm a lead structural and architectural draftsman or designer at OHM Engineering in Hancock, Michigan. We handle mostly commercial buildings and structures like that, so I only work with that, no residential work. I'm basically in charge of handling all the technical work to put together sets of blueprints and plans to build buildings. All right, we're gonna do a day in my life. So this is my typical setup for drafting area. What you don't see in front of here is I usually have lots of blueprint sets out, big sets of plans that are 24 by 36 inches or larger that I'm constantly flipping through. Most of my day is spent on the computer doing drafting work. This is an example of what AutoCAD drafting is. There's lots of colors in there, you can see. This is the standard format for things for years. They've now moved to doing things in Revit 3D, which is different, and I'm going to show you that too. Things are colored. It's easier to decide what you're looking at. You know, I can see red is always my dimension lines. I can see walls are blue. I can see text is this pinkish color. It's really easy to see what I'm working on at the time. I can zoom in and out of this as far as I want in. This is basically one portion of the set of plans. This is a floor plan that I'm working on, and it's for a Michigan Tech's press box. It's actually a completed project, but I pulled it up anyway because it was kind of fun to do. On my screen I have different tabs that I can flip between different levels. I have first floor plan, second floor plan, roof plan, and I have exterior elevations. So I work in these and I have to spend a lot of time pulling information from one to the other. So I have to learn how to see things in 3D and understand what from a plan is going to transfer to an elevation. And those are a lot of basic old school buildings, the way you learn things, learning how to draw, which is so different from what it is nowadays. So this is what it would look like in CAD, but if I was to print this same set of plans off and send it to a contractor, this is a PDF of the same sheets. So you can see we've got black and white versions of it. The important thing that has to happen is everything has to show up in the right grayscale or black or thickness of lines to differentiate between what different materials are. And when we're done, we basically have a complete PDF set of the whole plan. And just to show you what the cover sheet looks like. This is a cover sheet, and we have a master index of all the drawings that go with it. So I have to work with all these people, civil engineers to draw up the site plan, structural engineers to do all the structure for the building, which I draw that as well, and I really enjoy. The architectural plans, I draw those up. And then we have an MEP group here where they do plumbing, mechanical, and electrical. So I have to make sure everything I draw is something they can use to draw on top of, more or less. So the plan set we were talking about upstairs that I had drawn in CAD for the Curly Stadium press box, this is the actual set of blueprints. And we'll just kind of flip through it so you can get an idea of what's involved in a whole set of plans. Now, it's not the biggest building, but it was rather complex and technical, so it did require a few sheets. We always have to have a code sheet. This is what's going to get us passed by the state to show that this meets the regulations for safety for the public. So there would be floor plans and different markings and notes and different hatches to identify what the different spaces are used for, and tables. This isn't a huge project, so these are actually pretty small. Sometimes these will take up to 4 pages. Here we have notes and legends, what's typically on a set of plans. This is civil drawing here. Now they have their own unique setup. It's a little more simplified graphically, but they don't need to have that much information relayed is really fancy drawings. So they would have existing conditions, what they're going to demolish from the area, electrical lines that are buried underground. They identify everything that's there that they're removing. This is where you start getting into the real complicated part. You have to figure out how everything goes together and stacks up. So we're figuring out stairways, how the stair treads work and the handrails, how the handrails mount to the slabs, how the beams go together underneath them. And we have to show enough information so the company that makes this stairway can put it all together. Here we show the 4 elevations of a building: north, south, east, and west. And typically you note elevations and materials that are used. It's just kind of a visual representation of what it's supposed to look like from standing there looking at it. Well, then we have to cut it in half. This is where we got to look at the building through the whole building. It's called a building section. And then we identify places we're going to blow up with these bubbles. Each one of these bubbles, then we have to draw an enlarged view of that same thing. Basically, that's a complete set of plans. And doing my job, you have to basically coordinate everybody getting it together and printing it off, and that's how it gets built. All right, this is the Michigan Building Code. This is just one of a set of books that's tied together. We have Michigan Building Code, we have an International Building Code, we have ADA Building Code for compliance for handicapped people. And then every discipline has their own code too. The architect or the engineer, this is where they spend a lot of their time because they have to make sure this is following the code. So this book literally lists everything, and it's not the simplest thing to read. I've gone through it many times over my job, but every time is still kind of a little confusing unless it's something you do every day. But this has structural design, rooftop assemblies, walls, means of egress, fire protection systems. Very complicated. We don't do that. We usually have someone else help us with that. Fire and smoke protection, general building heights and areas. This is where it comes in and filling in these code requirements on the plan set. So we take those plans and we send them to the state. They look at this and they check our work, and if something's wrong, they get back to us and say, you need to fix it to make it work. All right, so last question that we have to discuss here is, why am I important to this business? So you've seen that I have to cover a lot of ground here. Basically, I'm in charge of handling everybody's stuff. So mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil, and putting it together. I don't necessarily have to know all of their particulars or the unique things that they do. You learn it over time, but there's no way I could know all of it. But I have to be able to catch what they're doing and understand how it affects what I'm trying to do. So being responsible for that structural and architectural, which those two are so tied together, you have to have those two working together all the time. I need to be able to look over everything and see where I see problems, because that's where we'll get in trouble. They may not look at a plan set in electrical and go, oh, well, you know, technically you can't build this building this way, but in the architectural they can. And I need to make those pieces fit together. And so at the end of the job, I kind of have to make sure it gets organized and put out to the client. And then actually one thing we didn't discuss is, once we get this building built, a lot of times we'll do construction administration. So I will be out in the field watching them build the job, checking on it, making sure they're using the right materials, answering questions that contractors bring up. I would bring a lot of those back to the office because they might be over my head. But having that whole entire thing going on, you kind of are the one person that everybody goes to and says, what's happening with this? And making sure that it's done before it goes, and before it's out the door. So that's what I do.